Hello everyone, this is the finale of What If Naruto Was the Devil Ninja, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Devil Ninja. Hey, hey, hey. It's you two again. What I think you're doing on my turf? You two wanna fight? Wanna brawl? Naruto would never get over how Great Red sounded like a delinquent from a biker gang, but he was actually kind of glad to see the massive dragon. Yo, Great Red, been a while. Hope you've been well. Do you wanna get in on this action? You bet your spiky blonde head I do. Then do you think you can fight this guy here? He's got Trihexa sealed inside of him. Naruto hitched his thumb at Yami, who for some odd reason wasn't saying anything. He had an uncomfortable look on his face as he stared at Great Red. The way he was grimacing made Naruto think he'd swallowed spoiled ramen or something. Oh, Trihexa, huh, I didn't realize that bastard had been unsealed. Well, alright, I guess I can show this guy how to party. But I also want to fight with you next. You and I never got to have a good old-fashioned showdown last time. Sure, I'd be more than happy to fight you. Yami finally snapped out of whatever had caused him to remain silent. His eyes sharpened as he glared at Naruto and Great Red. Don't think this will go down the way it did last time. I'm much more powerful now than I ever was before. Yami once more released the power of Trihexa, transforming into a beast of unimaginable proportions. He was even bigger than Great Red. He towered over the massive dragon, all 7 of his heads dripping spittle and snarling. Oh, man, he's a big one. Alright, I'm getting pumped now. Come at me, brew. I'll blast your ass into grass. Great Red lunged forward and snapped his jaws around one of Trihex's 7 nanoseconds. He tore the head right off. This did nothing to stop the beast of the apocalypse, however, who fired a breath attack from the other 6. The flames washed over Great Red, but they didn't seem to harm him. His scales remained pristine as they glistened in the dimensional gap's strange light. Naruto flew several meters away from the battle, sat cross-legged on the ground, and took a deep breath. You ready, Kurama? I am. Let's do this. Naruto lifted his arms and began going through several hand seals at a swift but steady pace. Meanwhile, deep inside of the seal, Kurama was similarly going through the same hand seals. Devil Ninja. Rias tracked Nyx with her hand, palm facing outward as she fired blast after blast of her power of destruction. This was another one of her SKS. She called it Destruction Bullet, and it was an attack that launched hundreds of compressed bullets made from demonic energy at her opponents. None of the attacks had a lot of power, but being hit with one would still hurt. Unfortunately, Nyx was incredible at evading her attacks. Is that all you have, Rias Gremory? I'm pretty disappointed. You foo. Then how about I liven things up a bit? A large bolt of holy lightning rained down from above, where Akino was floating. The attack struck the mass of shadows that was Nyx. Unlike Rias's attacks, which the woman had dodged, Nyx was left with no choice but to block this one. A magic circle appeared above her head to intercept the attack. And that was when Koneko made her move. The little Nekosho was not so little anymore. She had already activated Shiron mode, allowing herself to temporarily grow older by gathering nature-based ki from her surroundings and synchronizing it with her Tuki. Rias didn't understand how it all worked. All she knew was that Koneko was 10 times more powerful in this form than she normally was. Suck on this, see. Koneko's fist released a shrill cry as it cut the air, struck Nyx on her side, and sent the woman sailing. Nyx screamed in pain, but the sound turned from pain to rage as she disappeared in a black mist. Rias looked warily around for her. She didn't see anything, but then Koneko's scream caused her to twist her head. Koneko had black mist pouring into her eyes, mouth, nose, and ears. It looked like she was being invaded by dark miasma. Her body convulsed as though racked by great pain. Koneko. Nyx is trying to use her darkness to invade you. Push her out with your demonic power. Though Rias told her how to push Nyx's darkness out, that was easier said than done. If it was something Koneko could have done on her own, she already would have done it, and so Rias rushed forward and slammed her palm into Koneko's back. She unleashed her own demonic power. Channeling the power of destruction into Koneko, Rias targeted only the darkness invading her and nothing else. Ack, hack, cough. Thank you, Rias, Koneko said as the dark miasma invading her body was annihilated. Fingbi caught me by surprise. I'm just glad you're okay. Rias smiled, though it left her seconds later. Nyx is a lot stronger than I gave her credit for. Well, she is a primordial goddess, Koneko retorted. Nyx's power was indeed impressive, even for a primordial goddess, but what really galled Rias was that she wasn't even the most powerful member of the Alliance of Hell. Hades was. The fact that Nyx was giving Rias problems meant she was absolutely no match for Hades. That bothered her since it meant she couldn't help Ise. If you two are done having a moment, do you think you can help me? Asked Akeno. The half-fallen angel hybrid was being attacked by Nyx, who danced around her and sent numerous attacks her way. She tried to keep up. However, several magic circles appeared whenever Nyx disappeared, and they quickly surrounded Akeno, who found herself trapped within a massive barrier. That should keep you from interfering for a while, Nyx said with a grin. She turned back to Rias and Koneko. It's annoying having to fight multiple opponents at once. I hope you don't mind if I reduce your numbers to make this more of an even fight. A primordial goddess is fighting a couple of kids and says she wants a fair fight. That's rich, Rias said. Someone needs to teach this biatch a lesson, Koneko added. HMPH. This is why I hate fighting other women, Nyx muttered with a huff. Rias quickly flung her powers at Nyx, who merely swatted them from the sky. Meanwhile, Koneko was closing the distance to engage the woman in hand-to-hand combat, though Nyx didn't seem as eager to fight up close. She teleported several meters away before activating countless transportation circles between her and them. Koneko was forced to stop as an entire army of devils appeared before them. What is this? Asked Rias. This is my army, of course, Nyx said with a smirk. They are devils from the old Satan faction that I manipulated using hypnosis magic to do my bidding. I don't much care for fighting women, so my cute little army will be your opponents from now on. The entire army of devils surged forward to attack her and Koneko. Rias was left with no choice but to create a pair of swords from her demonic power and launch herself into the fray. She cut down several devils as she fought her way toward Koneko, who was busy busting heads. Her punches were enough to shatter skulls into fragments. Her kicks were so strong they could actually tear her foes in half. It was impressive, but there were so many enemies now that the two of them had no hope of winning. What's more, Akeno was still sealed inside of that barrier. What do we do, Rias? Asked Koneko. Give me a second to think. I don't think we have a second. Rias bit her lower lip hard enough to draw blood as she dispelled her swords, channeled demonic power between her hands, and sent it out as a massive beam that took down several dozen devils. However, that was just a drop in the well. There were so many more devils that even King a few hundred did nothing to quell their numbers. What they needed was an attack that could take all their enemies out in a single hit. There was only one attack Rias had in her arsenal that she was sure could do the job. Koneko, I need you to protect me while I gather the power needed for my trump card. How long do you need? 10, no, 5 minutes. That's a tall order, but I'll do my best. Rias leapt backward while Koneko moved forward. A pair of devils came in to attack her, one on the left and the other on the right, but Koneko twisted her body around to avoid the first's lunge. She grabbed their outstretched arm and snapped it like a twig. While the devil screamed himself hoarse, she maneuvered him in front of her, letting him take a spell that was meant for her. His body lit up in flames and she shoved him into his comrade before finishing them both with a blast of senjutsu bullets. They were, unfortunately, not the only ones who came in to attack Koneko. Nearly a dozen more were rushing forward. Some of them were even trying to maneuver their way around her to get at Rias. With a click of her tongue and slammed her fist into the ground. A shockwave spread across the ground, followed by an earthquake that knocked all the devils in front of her to the ground. She was sadly unable to capitalize on her enemy's state because there were even more behind them. Koneko crossed her arms and took several magic attacks head-on. She couldn't afford to dodge because Rias was right behind her. Each attack slammed into her and exploded, sending her stumbling backward and leaving massive burns on her arms, but she gritted her teeth and tenaciously remained standing. The other devils were getting up again. The long-range attacks stopped, but that hardly mattered now. Koneko was now beset on all sides by hundreds of devils who had recovered and were looking to take their pound of F from her. Despite being surrounded and massively outnumbered, Koneko fought as hard as she could. She broke a devil's face in with her fist. Then she crushed the balls of another. However, for as good as she got, she also received much worse. One devil speared her in the torso with a sword that must have been magical in nature. It broke through her rook defense and penetrated her F. She hissed in pain as she whirled around and launched a kick that sent him soaring into his comrades. However, the damage had already been done and she soon received another slash wound on her back. Koneko didn't know how long she fought. She attacked and attacked and attacked, but the army never seemed to end. More wounds began littering her body. Blood began pouring down her pale skin, but just when Koneko thought she would be overwhelmed, a massive dragon made of golden scales slammed into the devil army. It was Fafnir. Thy maiden of the panties bid me to aid you. I shall protect you during this battle, kitten. Koneko wasn't sure she appreciated being called kitten, but she couldn't say anything as a warm light engulfed her body and healed her wounds. She looked behind her to find Asia standing next to Rias. In the heat of the battle, she had completely forgotten that Asia was also with them. Feeling rejuvenated, Koneko threw herself into the fray once more, fighting side by side with Fafnir, the gigantous dragon, who used his incredible strength to plow through his enemies, his fire breath to burn his enemies, and even created mini replicas of himself to swarm over the army of devils. Koneko was in awe of this dragon, who up until now she thought of as nothing but a dirty old pervert. Together, the two were able to hold off the enemy until Rias called for them. Withdraw, you two. Fafnir and Koneko immediately backed off after knocking aside their enemies. Just when they cleared the firing zone, Rias launched her attack, Extinguished Star, into the center of the devil army's formation. All of that compressed power of destruction moved toward her enemies. While the attack was slow, it created a magnetic force that pulled all the devils in, sucking them up and disintegrating them. Koneko watched from afar as the Extinguished Star eradicated the entire army, striking the ground and suddenly expanding, sucking in even those who were further away. When the attack finally dissipated, nothing remained of the giant army. In its place was a massive crater. Rias has become scary strong, Koneko muttered. The busty maiden has indeed become a powerful force, Fafnir agreed. Busty maiden. Koneko mouthed to herself, though she didn't disagree. Rias was a definite member of the busty bombshell brigade. She was about to suggest they head down to Rias and Asia, but before she could voice it, Koneko screamed as she was struck by a bolt of holy lightning. She fell onto the ground, writhing as the holy energy seeped into her body. Koneko. Rias and Asia landed next to her. Asia knelt down. Her hands glowed as she activated Twilight Healing and fixed the damage dealt by the holy lightning. However, even with the damage repaired, Koneko still felt phantom twinges of pain. Rias looked up and glared at Nyx, who floated next to a stone-faced Akeno. How dare you use hypnosis on my family? I will make you pay for this. I wonder how you'll make me pay. Do you really think you have what it takes? If so, then come on, Nyx said before she turned to Akeno. K them. Akeno didn't say anything, but lightning sparked from her hand as she threw it out, sending another bolt hurtling toward them. Fafnir moved to intercept. As a dragon king, holy lightning did nothing to him. He took the bolt head-on without flinching. Koneko, I need you to hold off Akeno. Fafnir and I will deal with Nyx. Asia, please heal us whenever we get injured. You can count on me, Asia said. I shall listen to you only because the maiden of panties has bade me to. Please don't call me that, Fafnir-san. I'll see what I can do about holding off Akeno, but it's going to be tough, Koneko added. Just do what you can. Koneko grew wings from her back and quickly ascended into the sky. Akeno was already throwing holy lightning her way, but she swerved and barrel rolled to dodge the attacks. She couldn't afford to let herself get hit. Even one attack from holy lightning would be enough to damage her to the point where she'd be useless. I know you're not in control of yourself right now, so I hope you'll forgive me for pummeling you. Koneko threw several senjutsu bullets at Akeno, who raised a barrier, but that stopped her from using holy lightning, and Koneko took advantage of that fact to close the distance. She shattered the barrier with a single punch, then threw a kick that slammed into Akino's chest. It wasn't as powerful as it could have been. Her job wasn't to beat Akino but stall her. And she didn't want to hurt a friend. While Koneko dealt with Akino, Rias and Fafnir were attacking Nyx. While Rias launched attacks from a distance, using the control she had gained over her power of destruction from training with her brother to attack from every conceivable angle, Fafnir moved in close. He swung his tail at Nyx, who dodged by transforming into shadows. Unfortunately for her, Rias had already seen this trick several times. With a smirk, Rias attacked the shadows with her power of destruction, consuming them and forcing Nyx to emerge. The moment she did, Rias manipulated several of her reddish-black bullets to surround and pelt Nyx from all sides. None of the attacks were able to penetrate her godly aura, but they still did damage. Once her attacks subsided, Fafnir launched his own attack. He opened his mouth and from its depths emerged a sword made of silver and gold emerged. It looked like a holy sword. A multitude of colors flashed from the blade. The aura emanating from it was powerful. Rias didn't know what sword it was, but Fafnir did. Let us see how you deal with the renowned sword of the Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne, Joyeuse. Rias blinked. She had of course heard of Joyeuse. It was said that part of the same spear that LD Jesus Christ, the true Longinus, resided within the sword. Rumor had it that the sword could change many colors, and that it was so bright it blinded the enemies of Charlemagne on the battlefield. Well, crap, Nyx muttered. That was about all she could say as the blinding light of Joyeuse flared so brilliantly all the shadows around her vanished into nothingness. She had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Fafnir raced forward and jammed the weapon straight into the woman's chest. Nyx screamed in pain, but even that was silenced when Rias launched an attack that engulfed her in the reddish-black power of destruction. Perhaps it was not too surprising, but Nyx survived having her chest impaled and being engulfed by the power of destruction. That said, she was a far cry from being whole. She lay on the ground, body covered in black burns and blood pooling beneath her, eyes glazed over as she stared up at the sky. It's over, Rias said to her. Nyx blinked, eyes gaining clarity, and then she sighed. Yes, I suppose it is. You win. Rias smiled as Asia walked over to her. High above in the sky, Akino stopped fighting with Koneko, her expression morphing into one of dismay as she looked at the other girl. Koneko's body was covered in burns from near misses. Koneko, I am so sorry, Akino said. I was aware of what I was doing the whole time, but it was like my body refused to listen to me. Don't sweat it. I know you were being controlled by the sea sickle down there, Koneko said. Thank you, Akino said in a soft voice. The two of them flew down to where Rias, Asia, and Fafnir were standing. Rias greeted the two, throwing her arms around both Akino and Koneko. I'm so glad you're both okay. I'm sorry, Akino. I was unable to protect you. Akino blinked back her tears. Rias, it's fine. Thank you for being so concerned about me. The two girls allowed the warmth of Rias's embrace to calm them. Meanwhile, Asia used Twilight Healing on both Koneko and Akino to repair the damage that had been done during their battle. It was during this time that someone descended from above. Rias let go of Akino and Koneko, turned around, and faced Grayfear. The silver-haired queen looked around at the battlefield, then at Nyx on the ground, and then at Rias. I was told by Syrex to come and aid you, but it seems there was no need. Grayfear smiled. You did a marvelous job, Rias. I'm pleased to see how much you've grown. Thank you, Grayfear, said Rias. Tell me, what's going on with the rest of the battle? It seems Office has transported Naruto and Yami into the dimensional gap, Grayfear began. Since there is no longer any need to maintain the barrier, we have taken it down. Syrex, Ajuka, Brahma, and Indra are now helping out where they can, but they unfortunately cannot help battle against the Alliance of Hell. That's why Syrex has tasked myself and the other members of his peerage with helping defeat them. A wry smile twisted her lips. It looks like my assistance wasn't necessary. Rias listened and nodded. When Grayfear finished speaking, she smiled. Well, I'm sure there are other battles you can help with. Indeed, though I would like to deal with this matter first. Since it looks like you and your peerage are exhausted, please allow me to take custody of Nyx. We'll leave it to you then. Rias was more than happy to let Grafia deal with the now defeated Nyx. She and her peerage left, traveling back toward the camp, which was no longer the site of the battlefield. There they found Rosweiss, Ravel, Kiba, Irina, Gasper, Lefay, and Zenevia. All of them looked like they had been put through a meat grinder, their be covered in lacerations and bruises. Asia immediately moved to heal them. I'm glad to see all of you are okay, Rias said. We have Sirex's peerage to thank for that, Kiba said. We were unable to deal any permanent damage to Tartarus no matter what we did, we were beginning to run out of power, and then his peerage came and replaced us. I think they are still fighting Tartarus even now. It galls me to think that we weren't powerful enough to defeat one god by ourselves, Zenevia muttered bitterly. That one god just happens to be the primordial god of Abyss, Rosweiss said dryly. We're lucky we were able to last as long as we did against him. Zenevia sighed. I suppose. Rias smiled as she gingerly sat beside her peerage, glad that they were all in good enough health to talk like this. By the way, where is Naruto? Asked Irina. Rias tried to hide her grimace, and when that didn't work, she sighed and said, it seems he's fighting against Yami in the dimensional gap. Silence descended on the group. It was heavy and thick. However, this silence was broken by Kiba. I'm sure Naruto will be fine. He's the strongest person I know. Naruto is a true man, Gasper added. Yeah, even I admire him, said Zenevia. I'm still a little concerned, Rosweiss admitted. I know how strong he is, but he's up against Yami. I heard from Sirex's peerage that he has become the Jinchuriki for Trahexa. I want to have faith in Naruto, but that doesn't stop me from worrying. I know how you feel, said Rias with a strained smile. But that's really all we can do, have faith that he can beat Yami. Rias reflected on all the times she had shared with Naruto. While there had been many bumps on the road, and he had done quite a number of dumb things that infuriated her, his presence had brightened her life. She knew how strong he was, and so she had faith that he could win. I wouldn't worry about Naruto too much, Ravel suddenly said. Everyone turned to her. Naruto and I were talking about how to deal with Yami before this mission began. I can't say the plan we came up with is guaranteed to work, but it does have a good chance. Everyone looked at Ravel curiously. Even Rias had not known the two had discussed how to deal with Yami, though perhaps she should have. Ravel was basically Naruto's manager and his strategist. The two often discussed things like that by themselves. How does Naruto plan on dealing with Yami? Asked Kiba. Yami is really just Naruto's other half. He is a mass of chakra given human form, which means he isn't made of F and blood like we are, Ravel began. What's more, his chakra possesses the same unique signature that Naruto's does. Everyone hung on to Ravel's words. Koneko and Irina were leaning forward. Rosweiss might not have looked like she was paying as much attention, but it was clear from the way she leaned slightly in that she wanted to know what Naruto's plan was. Lefay and the others were much the same. So what's that got to do with how Naruto plans to defeat Yami? Asked Akano. Ravel smiled. Since Naruto and Yami are the same person, it should be possible for Naruto to seal Yami inside of himself. He plans to create a seal that will force them to combine and become one again. Devil Ninja. Naruto finally finished the last hand seal. The battle between Yami and Great Red halted to a standstill as the power he was releasing washed over them. He closed his eyes as an unpleasant sensation tugged on his body. It felt like he was being sucked through a tube, though Naruto understood this was just how it felt when he and Kurama traded places. When Naruto opened his eyes again, he was located inside of an empty space that looked like a prairie. Grass was everywhere, trees could be seen in the distance, and mountains even further out spread out as far as the eye could see. He took in a deep breath and inhaled the scent of earth. Then he sat down and began going through another string of hand seals. You're up, Kurama. Leave it to me. In the outside world, it looked to Yami and Great Red like Naruto's body had transformed, though in truth he had just switched places with Kurama. While Kurama was a fox and didn't have a human form, because Naruto was human, his current body had taken on the form of a red-haired young man. Eyes like rubies glinted in the kaleidoscopic twilight of the dimensional gap. His long, red hair was like a wild mane that descended down to the middle of his back. Meanwhile, 10 bushy fox tails emerged from his tailbone. He was Zen at first, but with a simple application of chakra, Kurama was able to create a red hakama and haori to complement his milky white skin. Since he disliked clothes, he forewent shoes and opted to create a pair of tabi sandals like the ones Naruto's perverted sensei wore. With his outfit complete, he strode over toward where the paused battle had taken place. "Do you mind if I join this party?" he asked. Oi, 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 what's going on here? I thought you were sealed inside of that kid. Great Red exclaimed. I am sealed inside of Naruto, but he and I have temporarily traded places. Oh ho ho, I see. How interesting. How cool. Say, you wanna battle me? It'd be great. Kurama smiled. I would love to fight you, but first, I must take care of this pest. Kurama was eyeing Yami, who looked like he'd just eaten dog s. His face was all puckered and angry. Sweat trailed down his scalp, however, showing that he was also afraid, as well he should be. Kurama's power was easily on par with Office and Great Red. I should have known this was Naruto's goal, Yami spat. But it doesn't matter. Even if you've been reverse summoned here, I won't let you win. I'll defeat you with Trihex's powers. You're free to try if you want. But I don't think you have what it takes to beat me. Kurama's Gaelic shrug, as if he didn't care about what Yami did, set Naruto's dark half off. He released a scream of rage and with it all the power he possessed. A shockwave slammed into Kurama and Great Red, though neither of them moved. Kurama's hair blew away from his face as dark miasma poured out of Yami and encased him in what could only be described as black armor. I see, Kurama murmured. You are compressing Trihex's power to form an empowering set of armor that increases all of your physical attributes. Don't tell me you're hoping to beat me by increasing your physical prowess. Hey, I guess I'll have to show you how foolish you are with my fists. Yami's scream had become gurgled and indecipherable, but Kurama didn't need to understand him to know what this was. A scream of rage, a scream of hatred, of discontent, of an unwillingness to accept reality. Yami was synchronizing his hatred with Trihex's to increase the amount of power he could bring to bear. It won't be enough. That power will never be enough. Yami threw himself at Kurama. His hand became a sword that he swung down to Kurama in half, but it was blocked with a tail. Roaring in mouse rage, Yami tried to impale Kurama with his other hand, which had transformed into a lance, but it was blocked by another tail, which coiled around Yami's arm and restrained it. Snarling, the two hands transformed from weapons into animals. One was a snake and the other the stinger of a scorpion. They bit and espered Kurama, who released Yami, but they couldn't inflict any lasting injuries. Leaping backward, Yami did not attack again right away. He must have been wary of Kurama. Of his power. If you won't attack me, then I will attack you. Prepare yourself. Unlike Yami, Kurama didn't launch himself into a sprint. He simply appeared right next to Yami and extended his palm, which struck Yami in the chest, breaking through the armor he wore and snapping his ribs like twigs. An explosion of power sent him flying backward. While the attack was powerful, however, it was nowhere near enough to do Yami in. The armored figure flipped through the air and righted himself. Then he raised his hand. His hand transformed into a massive barrel. Kurama raised an eyebrow. I guess you can use Trihex's power in other ways too. Did you get this idea from Isis Cardinal Crimson promotion? Yami did not answer with words. Power gathered in the barrel and was released in a dark beam that covered several meters in width, large enough to engulf Kurama. With an annoyed sigh, he gathered power into his fist and launched an uppercut that struck the beam and caused it to curve. The powerful attack flew into the atmosphere, creating distortions that caused seismic tears to appear in the kaleidoscopic sky. If you wanted to play like that, you should have just said so. Kurama brought all 10 of his tails around and had them curl to form something similar to a gun barrel. Power gathered, coalescing into a single sphere of bright crimson that crackled and sparked, and then it was released. An incandescent beam of crimson destruction flew toward Yami, who flew out of the way and allowed the attack to pass him. That was when Kurama appeared and decked him in the face. Yami spun like a top before righting himself. He proved his mettle by not falling unconscious and instead planting his hand onto a projected surface, lifting his leg, and kicking Kurama so hard that his head snapped back. It was an impressive kick. Blood leaked from Kurama's broken nose, but he just bent the nose back into place with a loud crack and let it heal. The two continued to fight, but now it was hand to hand. Yami launched a series of rapid-fire punches at Kurama, who weaved between them before wrapping one of Yami's arms up in his tail and pulling it from its socket. This did not deter Yami, who slammed a Rasengan into the tail, removed his arm, and pulled it back into place. Spinning on the balls of his left foot, Kurama fired off a powerful reverse heel kick, though it was blocked by Yami's forearm. Using the force of Kurama's kick to increase his momentum, Yami spun around and snapped a kick that he delivered into Kurama's torso. The attack was powerful. It released a shockwave that spread across the dimensional gap. But Kurama remained mostly unharmed. Impressive. You're definitely Naruto. But you still lack his resolve and steely determination. I guess that's what happens when you let darkness consume you. Yami seemed unable to respond with words. It was like he had become an incoherent beast. He roared at Kurama, which went to show him how lost this creature was. As the battle continued, Kurama realized that Yami was not losing any power. His power might be weaker than Kurama's, but he seemed to have the ability to replenish his reserves instantly. Was this what it meant to be fueled by the world's hatred? If this keeps up, I will begin to lose. You about ready? I'm ready. Can you hold him in place? I can do that. During the next exchange, Kurama wrapped his tails around Yami's arms, legs, and en. The young man screamed incoherently and struggled. He released fire from his mouth, launched beams from his chest, and tried to claw at Kurama's tails. None of it worked. Now's your chance, Naruto. Leave this to me. Databio. Don't databio me. Hurry up. It might not have seemed like Kurama was struggling, but Yami was a scrapper, and it wouldn't be long before it became impossible to keep him contained. Fortunately, Naruto recognized this. Before Yami could struggle free, an ethereal hand shot from Kurama's stomach, from the seal, and slammed into the black armor. The hand seemed to burn the armor away, revealing the wide-eyed Yami. No, stop it. I don't want this. I want freedom. Damn it. Let go of me. Let go. The hand plunged into the chest of the still struggling Yami, but the man's struggles became weaker and weaker, until Yami's body just stopped working entirely. Seconds later, the body dissolved into chakra particles and the ethereal hand closed around a black ball of power and contempt. It brought the ball inside of Kurama's chest, where it disappeared with a ripple. You okay in there? I am fine. But, how do I say it? I wasn't expecting the hatred to be this intense. Well, you did just absorb Yami and Trihexa. Yeah, guess I didn't think about that. It looks like I have to subdue Trihexa before I can integrate Yami. This might take a while. How long is a while? Quote. Naruto. A couple of years, probably. Kurama sighed. Rias is going to be pissed. I know. Hey. What was that just now? What did you do? In all the excitement, Kurama had completely forgotten about Great Red. He turned to the massive dragon. It was easily 50 times taller than he was right now. However, that could change if Kurama turned into his fox form. We simply sealed Yami and Trihexa inside of Naruto's body. Speaking of, Naruto is currently fighting to subdue Trihexa. It's gonna take a few years, so we'll be staying here until that happens. Hope you don't mind, Kurama said. Great Red tilted his head and seemed to ponder this. I guess it's fine. But, in exchange for letting you stay here, I demand you fight me. That is fine, Kurama agreed. Hey, Kurama, we need to let Rias know what's going on. Would you? Say no more. I've got this. Devil Ninja. The battle was over. The Chaos Brigade was beaten and the Alliance of Hell had retreated. The battle was won, though not without heavy casualties. Rias and the others were standing before a platform upon which the leaders of the Alliance stood. All of them were present, even Michael and those who had fought against the Alliance of Hell during the initial surprise attack. They had not gotten off lightly. Michael's injuries had been healed, but Rias had seen the damage before it was repaired. It had been quite horrific. The battle is won. All of you have fought hard to achieve this victory. From the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank each and every one of you, which is why we are going to host a party at the Gremory estate and everyone here is invited. Sirex announced, to the cheers of the crowd. Because their means of transportation had been destroyed, Sirex needed to create transportation circles for everyone. Fortunately, Shiva was present to help. The god disguised as a young boy had decided to stick around for a while. He created the transportation circles using knowledge from Syrex to teleport everyone to the Gremory estate. The party that her father and mother hosted for everyone was massive and must have been prepared in advance. One of the ballrooms used to host large functions had been converted into a party space. Tables with loads of food were set up along the walls, the dance floor in the middle was free for anyone who wanted to dance, and a band playing modern music was situated on a stage near the back. Since this was a party meant to celebrate their victory, everyone was still wearing the clothes they had battled in, including Rias and her party. Honestly, Rias just wanted to take a bath and go to sleep. Yet she knew sleep would not come right now. Naruto had yet to return home, after all. Rias had snuck away from the party once she found herself able to. She walked onto the balcony, a glass of wine in hand, and looked at the night sky. "Where are you, Naruto?" she asked. "I'm right here." Hyaaa. Rias shrieked and spun around to find a blonde man standing right next to her. The blue eyes, foxy grin, and whisker marks on each cheek were as familiar to her as her own face. "Naruto, you're back." Rias threw herself into him, hugging him for all he was worth. Naruto returned the hug. As she felt his arms wrap around her, a feeling of safety and security encapsulated Rias, who couldn't keep from sighing as she rubbed her face against his chest. "Well, kind of. Rias pulled back and looked into Naruto's eyes, but he just smiled and shrugged. "I'm just a shadow clone. The real Naruto wanted me to deliver a message to you." A feeling of trepidation filled her heart. "What's the message?" "He says it's gonna take a bit more time integrating Yami back into himself than he expected. Might be a few years, actually. He wanted to ask if you would be willing to wait for him until then." Oh, that actually wasn't as bad as she thought it would be. She took a deep breath, placed a hand against her chest, and smiled at the Naruto clone. "Feel free to let him know that I'll wait for however long it takes. I'll wait forever if I have to." The clone smiled. "I don't think you'll need to wait forever, but I'll let the boss know." And just like that, the clone dispelled itself, smoke wafting from where he had been. Rias moved to the balustrade and leaned against it, a frown marring her face as she realized that, once again, Naruto had done something stupid. This was all par for the course with him. She understood he didn't always think things through. He was the type of person who went with his gut. At the same time, she wished he would consult with her before doing stuff like this. "Oh, well, I guess that's just how he is," she said. "Naruto is going to be away for a while, I take it." Rias turned her head as Office walked up to her side. The infinite dragon god was not looking at Rias, but at the vast sky. "Seems that way," Rias said. "I wouldn't worry too much. Naruto isn't the type to break a promise. If he says he'll be back in a few years, then I believe him," Office said. "I know." Rias tilted her head and drained the last of her wine. With a soft sigh and a small smile, she watched the fake stars twinkling in the sky. "I believe him too." Devil Ninja. Rias Gremory woke up to a weight on her chest. She blinked several times to find herself staring at the familiar ceiling of her room. The weight on her chest was Office, bare as the day she'd been born. Ravel and Koneko were also sleeping with her, though they slept together on her left. She thought it was cute how Koneko slept with her face buried in Ravel's chest. Rosweiss, Lei Fei, and Irina were nowhere to be seen, but they were not as cuddly as these three were. Yawning as she sat up and scooted backward until she was resting against the headboard, Rias stretched her arms before she began waking the other three girls up. "Come on, you three. Time to get up. We've got a long day ahead of us." "Just 5 more minutes," Office mumbled. "I want 5 more years, please. Let me hibernate," Koneko added. "Don't be lazy," Ravel said as she woke up. Like Rias, this girl was one of those early to bed, early to rise types. "Listen to Lady Rias and get your butt out of bed." "Ugh, who the hell made you the boss?" asked Koneko. "I became the boss because you don't do anything. Now get up," said Ravel. Rias smiled as she climbed out from under Office, who was slowly waking up, and got dressed. It had been 4 years since the battle to reclaim Agrees and stop Yami from resurrecting Trihexa. Rias had graduated from high school and was now in her senior year of college. Kuo Academy was an elevator school, so she attended the college attached to it, which meant she still walked to school with her group every morning, though this would change starting next year after she graduated. Next year, I'll have to assume my duties as the head of the Gremory household. Rias traveled downstairs with the other girls to find Akino making breakfast and Rosweiss sipping a cup of coffee as she read the morning newspaper. The silver-haired Valkyrie looked up when they entered. A smile lit her face. Good morning, you four. Morning, Rosweiss. Akino, Rias said as she sat down. The other three sat with her, though Koneko's head came to rest on the table. It was technically bad manners, but this was their home, so Rias let it slide. Ravel sat with proper posture at least, but she expected nothing less from the woman who was looking to become Naruto's second wife. Well, his second wife once he returned and married Rias herself, of course. Everyone had grown since that day 4 years ago. Koneko, Ravel, and Gasper were freshmen in college. Issei, Kiba, Zenevia, Irina, and Asia were sophomores. Rosweiss no longer worked as a teacher. She was now the accountant who the Rias's money and invested it in various business ventures. Also, good morning, everyone, said a sweet and cheerful voice. A young girl walked into the kitchen, dressed in the high school uniform of Kuo Academy. Her blonde hair was long and traveled all the way down to her butt, her chest filled out the dress well, and she had 9 tails sticking out behind her. She was currently not wearing shoes or socks. She padded barefoot across the floor and sat in a chair opposite Rias. Good morning, Kanu. Ready for your first day as a senior? Asked Rias. I am, Kanu said in a cheerful voice. Everyone else soon filed into the kitchen and said their morning greetings. Issei sat between Zenevia and Asia. Rainier grumbled about it, but she had arrived late and missed her chance. Several other women entered the room, though none of them were a part of Rias's peerage. There was Ingvild Leviathan who Issei had made his queen and Benia Orcus who had been traded by Sona to become Issei's knight. Zenevia and Asia were also a part of Issei's peerage now. Issei had not changed much over the years. He was a little more confident but no less perverted. Rias would say he was better at hiding his perversion, however. He was also a lot stronger now, having been promoted to high-class devil 2 years ago. His peerage lived with Rias and her peerage. After getting dressed, eating breakfast, and walking to school with everyone, Rias found herself thinking about the future as she attended her classes. Her major was in political science and the culture. She figured it would help her once she became the head of the House of Gremory, which had shifted most of their focus from expanding territory to fostering relationships with other mythologies and religions. Rias herself was currently in the middle of negotiations with the vampires to increase trade and foster friendships. School eventually ended. Rias was not part of the Occult Research Club anymore since that was a high school club and she had business to attend to. Now that she was an adult, Rias had begun accepting more work from her father to prepare her to become the Gremory house's leader. She traveled back home alongside Koneko and Ravel. I'm so tired, Koneko grumbled as she munched on some manju. Why are you tired? You barely do anything in class, snapped Ravel. Watching you work so hard is tiring, mus goody two shoes. I dare you to say that again. Rias could hardly contain her grin as the two fought. Watching them squabble like this was somehow calming. It had become such an integral part of the daily routine that she would feel weird if they ever stopped. Speaking of class, how are your studies going? She asked. They're going fine, Ravel said. I'm excelling in ancient history and policy, but I'm not doing as well in maths. I just dislike numbers and calculations, though I know math might end up being useful in rating games, so I'm still working hard. She says that, but she has an 80 to 89% average in math, Koneko said, yawning. Meanwhile, your average is only 70%. You could stand to try a little harder, Ravel said, scolding the girl. Why bother? Asked Koneko. None of that is going to help me. Once Naruto returns, I'll go into heat, have his baby, and become a housewife. What kind of dream is that? The best kind of dream. Rias shook her head and giggled as they turned the corner that led to their house, and stopped in her tracks. Koneko and Ravel had also stopped. She and the other two stared in shock at the two figures standing by the gate to their home. One of the figures was a man with crimson hair that went down to his waist. He had eyes the color of blood, thick whisker marks on his cheeks, and stood at least 2 heads taller than the other person. He was handsome and looked somewhere in his mid to late 20s. It was hard to tell. The outfit he wore was a traditional red hakama and haori that went well with his hair. However, it was the other person who really captured her attention. Spiky blonde hair, bright blue eyes, whisker marks lining his tanned face. The young man was wearing black pants, a black shirt, and an orange jacket that went over his broad shoulders. He didn't look like he had aged much at all since the last time she saw him 4 years ago. A chess piece was being rolled between his fingers. She recognized it as a fairy piece. Tears welled up in her eyes as she hurried over to the gate. The two sensed her arrival. The blonde man turned to her with a smile on his face. Hey there, Rias. Whoa. Naruto. It wasn't just Rias who had screamed that name, but Koneko and Revel too. All three of them had lunged at Naruto at nearly the same time. He must not have been prepared for a three-way assault because Naruto went down in a tumble as all three women landed on him. Oof. You girls have grown. That hurt, Naruto muttered. On any other occasion, these three would have smacked him for essentially saying they had gained weight, but none of that mattered right now. They were so happy to see Naruto that tears trailed down their faces as they looked up at him with big smiles. Welcome home, Naruto, Koneko, Revel, and Rias said at the same time. Naruto smiled as he reached out and began caressing their hair. Behind him, the mysterious redhead said nothing, though he looked like he was grinning at them. I'm home, Naruto said right before pulling them into a tight hug. I'm finally home. Devil Ninja. Everyone reacted excitedly when they came home to find that Naruto had finally returned. Kiba and Issei had slapped his back, and even Gasper had tried to act manly by giving him a firm handshake, tears in his eyes notwithstanding. Of course, the real prize had come from the women in his life. While both Irina and Rosweiss had smacked him, they had also given him a big kiss. LeFay had kissed him too, but she was a bit more tentative since she had only joined him in bed once. Rias decided to host a party to celebrate his return. It was just a small party between members of the Gremory household. Revel, Akeno, and Kanu made him a big dinner with all kinds of foods. Naruto was surprised to see Kanu again, but he learned from Rias that she returned to Kuo a year after the war against the Chaos Brigade ended. The party itself was lively, though he would say the highlight was when Kanu got drunk on GR juice of all things and began hitting on him. That had been fun. Oh, who was he kidding? The highlight of his day wasn't even the party, but the S that came afterward. A sweaty and exhausted Naruto lay amidst a pile of NB. Rias, Revel, Rosweiss, Koneko, Office, LeFay, and Irina were lying in the middle of a large bed. They were using the special room Michael had created to allow Irina guilt-free S. This was her first time having Group S, and she'd been very shy, but everyone else had, helped her get over that shyness real fast. Said Angel was currently an inert pile of post-OICF. He'd never seen such a dopey smile on an angel's face before. So why did it take you so long to return? Asked Rias as she rested her head on his chest. Naruto was once more turning the fairy piece over in his hand. It was the same piece Rias had used to revive him. It's because Yami became Trihex's Jinchuriki. It meant I couldn't just integrate Yami back into myself. First, I had to defeat Yami and Trihexa in combat after they were sealed, and then I had to convert Trihex's power into chakra that I could slowly integrate into my own reserves. Beating him alone took more than 2 years. The rest of that time was spent integrating their power. I have noticed that you seem a lot more powerful now than you were before, Koneko said. She was resting her head on his lap. You also feel different, darker. Naruto gave her a strained smile. That would be Trihex's and Yami's influence. The darkness they represented has stained my chakra, basically. It's hard to explain, but that's the reason. It hasn't changed you, has it? Asked Rosweiss. Do you feel weird? More violent maybe? Naruto shook his head. I learned to accept my darkness a long time ago, so it doesn't affect me. That said, I can't use Sage Mode anymore. The world's darkness will overwhelm me if I do. Course, it's not like I need Sage Mode anymore. Naruto's power had received an explosive increase. Thanks to combining Yami and Trihex's power with his own, he was now as powerful as Kurama, which meant there was probably nothing in this world that could harm him. And, why is your evil piece no longer inside of you? Asked Rias. Because, I'm no longer a devil. Naruto sighed and placed the fairy piece in Rias's hand. After integrating their power, my body transformed into something else. I guess you could say I've become a god, though that sounds pretty arrogant. Damn right it sounds arrogant, Koneko muttered. It doesn't surprise me that you've become a god, Office said. Gods are beings who have attained a certain level of power or divinity. They can be formed from the belief of humans like the Christian, Norse, and Greek gods, but they can also be birthed from power like myself and Great Red. You are a lot like Great Red and myself. So you are no longer a devil? Asked Ravel. Correct. Since I'm a god, my body was reborn, sort of. Even Kurama was expelled from my body. He paused to kiss Rias on the head. I hope that won't change anything between us. Rias closed her fingers around the fairy piece, then leaned up and kissed Naruto on the lips. It was soft, gentle, and went a long way toward reassuring him that her feelings hadn't changed. Of course not. I still have every intention of marrying you, Rias said. That is good, Naruto said with a relieved expression. I'm gonna marry you too, Koneko added. I expect you to give me lots of babies. Is that all you think about now? Asked Ravel with a sigh. I wonder if I can actually have children, Office said, then grinned. It would be interesting to find out. Hold on, you three, Rosweiss said. Don't you think we've had enough S for one night? Poor Irina and Lefei have already fainted. If you don't want to have S, you can just watch, Koneko said as she sat up and straddled Naruto. I refuse to just stand by and watch as you three have fun. Take advantage of Naruto like this. She let her true emotions slip, Koneko said. She totally revealed her true intentions, Rias added. I sense jealousy, said Office. Rosweiss's face turned red. You three have become degenerates. Naruto raised his hand. I don't mind being taken advantage of. You stay out of this. This is all your fault to begin with. While Rosweiss argued and complained a lot, Rias and Office tag-teamed the poor Valkyrie and eventually seduced her into joining them again. Naruto didn't hesitate to begin pleasing the women he would eventually go on to create an empire with. By the gods of ramen, he loved his life. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.